Hey everyone. The baby has gotten sick, so this is kind of going to be a really rough version of Flip Notes because I don't even have my school laptop. But if you go in your Salmon packet to page 12, we're going to do page 12 and 13 through these notes. Like I said, they're going to look a little rough. They're probably going to sound a little rough because it's 1:37 a.m. But at least you guys can have them. And if you have any questions, obviously, let's follow up. Either send me a remind text, send me an email, or talk to me in class on Thursday. So this particular set is a follow-up from our physical geography activity from Monday. So remember that the Greeks grew up as a civilization around the Aegean Sea. So right around this pink highlighted area on the map, the whole Aegean Sea gets surrounded by Greek culture, and the actual fact that they're living on the sea is going to shape their entire environment. So ancient Greece is a collection of, a collection of separate cultures, separate city-states, so separate political units that all shared a common language, a common culture, a common religion, but they're actually independent political areas, so each place has its own government. The mainland of Greece, which includes the Balkan Peninsula and the Peloponnesus, both of which we talked about on our map, are going to make up sort of the main part of Greece. Then you also have over 2,000 island areas like Crete and Rhodes, but also, as you can see, all of this here in the middle of the Aegean, all of these are going to be Greek islands that develop Greek culture as well. So obviously, because the Greeks are on the water, that's going to impact the fact that they are going to use sea travel. They're going to use a lot of fishing. Their diet is going to contain a lot of fish. Poseidon, one of their main gods, is the god of the sea because the sea is so important to them. It's also going to lead to expansion of trade. A couple of the key waterways that you're going to need to know about are the ones that we went over on our map. And remember that we added these two red ones. We added the Sea of Marmara and the Dardanelles Strait to your map. They're just not really well labeled in your textbook, so that's why we need to add them. So Greece is extraordinarily mountainous. It drops and rises in elevation really quickly. And actually, that's what this topography chart has on it. So this particular chart takes a look at the elevation. This marks 1,000, 2,000, all the way up to 5,000 feet in elevation across this red line east to west that includes Athens and crosses the Gulf of Corinth just north of the city-state of Corinth. And if you can tell right here, see, this is section where Corinth, this Gulf of Corinth is, drops to zero here, sort of in the middle. And just immediately thereafter, it rises to 5,000 feet. And that distance is minuscule. So it is going, from a mile drop in elevation in not remotely that far of a distance on land. And so that makes travel very, very difficult. Particularly because obviously you're traveling in ancient Greece by foot, or you would try to travel by horse, but horses aren't going to traverse those mountain ranges very well. So they're going to actually look to other ways of getting around. Most notably, they're going to increase the use of boats, sea trade, and sea travel. They also don't have arable land. Remember, we talked about arable land is fertile land, and some of your repose statements talked about the fact that because their arable land was limited, they needed to expand and create colonies in order to find land they could grow crops on, or find other areas they could trade the sea-faring trades, like so the fish that they could catch or whatever, for other kinds of food that say they would have in northern Africa. So it's very, very nice in the Mediterranean. It's warm almost all year. It doesn't get very hot, doesn't get super cold, doesn't have horrible periods of rain and that sort of thing. Which, I'm so sorry, guys. Which allows the Greeks to develop a very outside-centered culture, including some of you guys will look today at their architecture and how they built buildings that didn't even necessarily have walls; they were just pillars and that sort of thing, because it's so perfect year round, really, with temperature. They do have fairly dry seasons that are going to leave creek beds dry, and then they're going to have some rainy seasons, which are going to lead to some flooding. But it's not nearly the destructive flooding that we discussed with, say, the Wanghae or the Indus River. It's just sort of general flooding that happens when you get a lot of rain in a condensed period of time. The Greeks are going to expand, so they don't just, their culture obviously begins in what is modern day Greece, but based on people like Alexander the Great, Greek culture spreads and at one point is under the control of the Greeks all the way south to Egypt and as far to the east as the Indus Valley, which means that their concepts of language and religion and politics are going to spread throughout the entire Middle East. So less than 30% of the land is farmable. Less than 30% are going to be fertile farmland. What they do tend to grow are things that are very hardy in rocky, dry climates. So grains, olives, which grow on trees, grapes, figs, which also grow on trees. All of these are fairly hardy plants. They don't necessarily need a lot of water because there's not going to be a lot of opportunity even for irrigation. They're not going to be able to have the canal systems that came from the fields the way that, say, the Egyptians did. For livestock, it's mostly goats and sheep. Larger livestock don't do very well on cliffs where the goats and the sheep obviously can climb the rocky outcroppings and that sort of thing fairly easily. So instead of having diets that are based, the American diet is based a lot on red meats and that sort of thing, theirs actually is a much more light. It's going to be fish, and it's going to be goat cheese, it's going to be lamb, and then it's going to be fruits and olives and that sort of thing. Which is, what that is. So if you want to take a minute and just pause this and take a look and see what you see, and then you can compare it here to the Egyptian one as well. Again, if you just want to click pause and back up and that sort of thing and just see what the differences are between what they could eat in, what they had access to in Egypt versus what they had access to in Greece. I find that very interesting. With Greek trade, you are looking at one of the first shifts to using a monetary economy. There has been Greek money found throughout all of Anatolia and also throughout pretty much all of the Middle East and Northern Africa as the empire expanded and as the trade expands with the sea trade, much like the Phoenicians, they find Greek coins all across Africa and the Middle East and throughout Greece. As we talked about at the beginning, each Greek city develops separately. We call them polises. The Greek word for city is polis. We create these city-states. The city-state is sort of a mini country. That word state means country. We use it incorrectly in the United States. Whereas, so every city, so Athens or Sparta or Olympia or Troy or Corinth are all independent cities with independent governments. They're just tied together based on their culture and their religion. And so every city was basically built around a public center with a marketplace and government buildings, that sort of thing. And oftentimes they had Acropolis in the center of their city. And this one is Athens, where you can see that important buildings like the Parthenon, which is the temple to Athena in Athens, are built on these acropolises. They're fortified, they're difficult to attack, and you have the important government buildings rising above the rest of the city. Generally, the polis is developed because you just couldn't get from one place to another very easily, and so mountains are a hindrance to cultural unification because you don't have the cities developing all together because they're not interacting as much together, but it actually helps the culture develop because each city-state is going to be very different. Like we'll talk about the differences between Athens and Sparta. The cities also were generally designed to promote civic responsibility, government engagement, and that sort of thing by creating these city centers that are marketplaces and that sort of thing. And if you picture like downtown Roanoke, where there's the big farmers market and there's the center in the square and there's the Taubman and there's restaurants, that's kind of the concept, but on an even more grand scale, even though it's the ancient world. And this map is actually going to just give you a concept about how large the Greek colonial system worked, because the green on the map is all Greek colonies or Greek landholdings. So you can see they go all the way around the Black Sea, they're in southern Italy, and they're all along the coast of France and Spain up to the border with the Phoenicians. And so you can see that the polis cities, they were overcrowded, but they were actually, each one had a fairly big governmental push to go out and expand into larger systems and find more places to live so they could fix some of their overcrowding problems. Alright, so that's it for this set of notes for pages 11 and 12. 12 and 13. What you guys need to do next, there's an assignment that you're going to copy down some information onto a slide and create a mini poster, which is due today, so make sure that you work on that. Let me know if you guys have any questions.